In life, nothing wounds a man more than disrespect. It strips power, poisons reputation, and if ignored, it multiplies. The question is, how should one respond when contempt is thrown upon them? Should you forgive? Should you retaliate? Or is there a darker, wiser path? Today, we uncover Machiavelli's most ruthless lesson, the darkest way to handle disrespect. Welcome to Machiavellian philosophy, where we extract power from the mind of Niccolò Machiavelli. In this lesson, we do not chase comfort, we chase control. Disrespect is not simply an insult, it is a declaration of war on your authority. And if you do not respond with precision, you invite more enemies. Let us now unveil 6 key principles that Machiavelli himself would whisper to those who dare to govern both kingdoms and hearts. Disrespect is a weapon. Not all weapons deserve the same reply. When a man insults you, when he mocks your name, when he throws words meant to pierce your pride, your instinct will be to strike back in equal measure. You will want to shout as he shouts, to wound as he wounds. But this is the first mistake of the common man. To answer insult with insult is to abandon your throne and sit in the mud beside him. Machiavelli would tell us, never meet disrespect with equal force. For in that moment, you do not punish him, you elevate him. You give him the honor of a duel when he deserves only to be crushed underfoot. Think of the ruler, the prince, the commander. If a subject dared to mock his authority in public, and the ruler replied with petty words, he would lower himself. He would show the court, the army, the people, that an ant has drawn his full attention, that the prince himself is shaken by the buzzing of a fly. Once this happens, others will see they too can provoke him, and soon his authority unravels. But if he remains calm, silent, superior, he is no longer seen as vulnerable. He is seen as untouchable, above insult, too vast to be moved by the little strikes of ordinary men. Understand this, equality is the enemy of power. To fight at the same level as your offender is to grant him equality, and Machiavelli teaches us that men crave nothing more than to appear equal to those above them. When you respond in kind, you fulfill their desire, you hand them the gift of standing shoulder to shoulder with you, even if only for a moment. That is the true danger of matching force with force. You give the weak the illusion that they are strong, and illusions once born spread like wildfire through the minds of others. So what is the alternative? The ruler does not argue with the fool, he outshines him. He does not fight for respect with words, he shows by his actions that his position cannot be touched. Silence itself becomes a weapon. To ignore the insult is to declare, you are beneath notice. And yet, when silence is not enough, retaliation must not mirror the offense, it must exceed it. If a man wounds you in front of 10, you do not wound him back with 10 words. You erase his standing before 100. If he stains your name, you do not stain his. You remind the world that your power overshadows him so completely that his attack becomes laughable. This is not equality, this is dominance. In the dark game of respect, appearing calm when insulted is not weakness. It is the signal of immense strength. The crowd sees your restraint and begins to whisper. If he does not reply, it is because he is in control. If he waits, it is because he is planning. Your silence alone becomes a threat, and your eventual response, if you choose to deliver it, lands with the weight of thunder. If you descend into equal force, you are no longer feared. You are merely a man trading blows in the marketplace. And once you are seen as such, your crown, whether of power, reputation, or influence, begins to slip. When disrespect strikes, the first instinct of the weak is to respond instantly. They burn with anger, their pride screaming for immediate satisfaction. They lash out with reckless words, with impulsive gestures, believing that speed equals strength. But Machiavelli warns us, the one who rushes revenge loses more than the one who waits. For impatience reveals weakness, and rage betrays strategy. Revenge, to be effective, must not be driven by fire. It must be guided by cold calculation. Consider the man who insults you in public. If you react in that very moment, you do so under the eyes of the crowd. They will not see strength, they will see an emotional wound. They will say, he was provoked, and so he reacted. But when you wait, when you appear unmoved, you plant doubt in the minds of all who witnessed the offense. They begin to wonder, why did he not strike? What is he planning? What is coming for the offender? Fear begins to grow not only in your enemy, but in everyone who watches. Patience, in this way, is not weakness. It is psychological warfare. Time is a blade sharper than anger. It allows you to gather information, to choose the battlefield, to select the method that brings not only retaliation, but complete advantage. If you respond too soon, you may strike your enemy, but you may also wound yourself. You may appear petty, you may expose your vulnerabilities, and you may invite retaliation in return. But if you delay, if you hold back, you gain the luxury of precision. You learn where they are weakest, what they value most, and how to dismantle not just their insult, their entire position. Machiavelli understood that men fear what they cannot predict. A swift, angry response is predictable. It ends as soon as it begins. But a silent, calculating adversary creates a storm that cannot be measured. Your enemy grows restless, paranoid, glancing over his shoulder at every shadow. He wonders when the blow will come, and in this way, you have already begun to punish him without lifting a finger. He suffers in anticipation, trapped in the prison of his own imagination. This slow poison often does more damage than the final strike itself. There is also power in letting your enemy feel safe. Pretend to forgive. Pretend to forget. Let him laugh, let him believe that his insult has passed unnoticed. Let him lower his guard. And in that false comfort, he becomes exposed. Then, when the moment is perfect, when his defenses are down, when he least expects it, you strike. Not in anger, but in absolute control. This kind of revenge does not merely repay an insult, it destroys the offender with precision so brutal that no one dares to follow his example. Revenge is not about balance, it is about dominance. To strike too soon is to aim only for balance, to restore what was taken in equal measure. But Machiavelli tells us equality is never enough. If you are disrespected, the answer must not be simple repayment. It must be overwhelming, crushing, final. And to achieve that, you cannot act with haste. You must act with patience. You must calculate, plot, and wait until your response is not only remembered, it is feared forever. Disrespect is never just about you and the offender. It is about the eyes that watch, the ears that listen, and the whispers that spread. When someone dares to insult you, they are not only testing your strength, they are showing the world whether you can be defied. Machiavelli warns that what is tolerated in public becomes permission for others. Disrespect unanswered is not a single wound, it is an open invitation for rebellion. And so, the wise ruler must understand public example is necessary, private mercy is optional. Imagine a leader seated before his court. A subject challenges his authority with bold words, mocking his decisions, perhaps even laughing at his rule. If the leader does nothing, if he lets the insult slide, it is not only that one man who grows bold. It is everyone in the room. They will whisper, "If he can say it, so can I." Respect dissolves not by grand betrayals, but by small cracks allowed to spread. To maintain power, the insult must be answered in public, and it must be answered in a way so decisive that no one else dares to repeat it. But here lies the cunning of Machiavelli's teaching. Punishment must not appear cruel for cruelty's sake. It must appear necessary, just inevitable. If you crush your enemy in front of others, do so cleanly, swiftly, a sense of order. Do not rage. Do not scream. Rage shows that you are shaken. Calm punishment shows you are in command. The spectacle is not just about silencing the offender, it is about shaping the minds of everyone else who watches. They must leave with the belief that disrespect carries consequences too heavy to risk. Yet there is wisdom in drawing a line between public and private. To punish publicly establishes fear, but to show restraint in private establishes control. When the eyes are gone and no one is watching, you may choose to show mercy, not because the offender deserves it, but because it strengthens your position. Private mercy creates loyalty. A man spared when he expected ruin becomes a tool indebted to you, bound by gratitude or fear of being exposed. In this way, mercy is not weakness, it is leverage. Consider also the balance between fear and love, a principle Machiavelli explored deeply. A ruler who punishes every small offense with cruelty becomes hated, and hatred is more dangerous than disrespect. The key is proportion. Public example must be sharp enough to terrify, but rare enough to remain memorable. If you punish constantly, punishment loses its power. But if you choose moments carefully, if you let one man's fate echo as a warning to 100 others, then you need not punish again for a long time. Fear multiplies without further effort. And what of private mercy? Here lies the darkest advantage. When you spare a man in secret, you hold his future in your hands. He knows that his life, his status, or his freedom continues only because you allow it. This creates not an equal, but a dependent. He becomes cautious, careful, eager to prove loyalty. And if he betrays you again, you still hold the story of his earlier offense, ready to destroy him with proof of ingratitude. Public severity strengthens your image, private mercy strengthens your grip. Disrespect, then, is not merely an insult to be avenged. It is a stage, a performance, a chance to teach the world how power responds when challenged. Your reaction is not only about silencing one voice, it is about silencing all voices that might follow. And to achieve this, you must strike in public with precision, and in private, decide whether mercy will serve your rule better than destruction. Every act of disrespect is bait. The offender does not simply wish to wound you, he wishes to see you bleed. He wants the satisfaction of your reaction, the proof that his words or actions pierced your armor. Machiavelli teaches us that the deepest cruelty you can inflict upon an enemy is not always in striking back, but in refusing to give him the very thing he desires, your attention. To deny your enemy satisfaction is to make him suffer in the silence of his own futility. Think of the man who insults you publicly. He expects your anger, your defense, perhaps even your revenge. His heart beats faster as he waits for the clash, for the validation that he has shaken you. If you rage, you confirm his power. If you argue, you meet him as an equal. But if you remain unmoved, if your face does not crack, if your voice remains calm or absent altogether, then his strike falls into emptiness. He swung his blade, but it met no flesh. He shouted into the air, but no echo returned. In that moment, his insult dies not by your retaliation, but by your indifference. This is not to say that silence is always weakness. Quite the opposite. Silence, when intentional, becomes a weapon sharper than any word. The crowd sees you stand untouched, and they begin to whisper, perhaps the insult was meaningless. Perhaps it never reached him. Perhaps he is too powerful to notice such small attacks. Your composure becomes the shield that deflects the insult back onto its origin. The offender is left exposed, his attempt looking petty, desperate, even foolish. Where he wanted to humiliate you, he has only humiliated himself. But there is a deeper game here, one more subtle than silence alone. You must learn to deny your enemy satisfaction in ways that unbalance him completely. If he wishes for your anger, give him laughter. If he wants your defense, give him silence. If he craves recognition, act as though he does not exist. The offender feeds on attention, and the more you starve him, the weaker he becomes. Men desire nothing more than significance. To strip them of it is to cut deeper than any sword. Consider also the psychological torment this creates. A man who attacks and receives nothing in return begins to wonder, did I fail? Was my strike too small? Is he plotting something I cannot see? His confidence turns to doubt, his doubt to paranoia. He replays his actions in his mind, searching for signs, growing restless under the weight of uncertainty. And all the while, you have lifted not a finger. You have won a battle without entering the field. There is, however, danger in misusing this power. To ignore an insult is effective only when you truly appear untouched. If your silence looks forced, if your face betrays anger, if your hands tremble, then the world will see through it. Denial of satisfaction must be performed with absolute control. Your calm must be convincing, your indifference unshakable. It is not enough to remain silent. You must embody the image of a man who is far above the petty strike of his enemy. The darkest lesson in this principle is that sometimes the most painful punishment is not destruction but dismissal. To destroy an enemy grants him the honor of having been a worthy opponent. To ignore him entirely is to erase him, to make him invisible, to deny him the very recognition he sought. Machiavelli understood that power is not only about who you strike, but about who you refuse to acknowledge. To deny your enemy satisfaction is to deny him existence itself. An insult, no matter how sharp, is but a momentary wound. Words cut, yes, but they fade quickly in memory. Reputation, however, is the flesh that clothes a man's entire being. Destroy his reputation, and you do not wound him for a day. You cripple him for life. Machiavelli reminds us that power is not built on private truth, but on public perception. And so, when you are disrespected, do not waste your time striking back at the tongue that spoke. Strike instead at the foundation upon which that tongue depends. Reputation. A man's reputation is his currency. It buys him trust, allies, influence, and safety. With a strong reputation, even a fool can gain followers. A ruined one, even a genius becomes powerless. This is why retaliation must not end at silencing words. To silence the offender's voice only delays him. To ruin his reputation ensures he is never heard again. The crowd must no longer see him as dangerous, clever, or bold. They must see him as unreliable, unworthy, broken. That is how you end the threat. Consider the offender who insults you in front of others. His goal is not just to wound you, but to elevate himself in their eyes, to appear strong at your expense. If you merely answer him with equal insult, you fight on his terms. But if you destroy his standing, if you cut away the respect others hold for him, then you erase the very platform from which he dares to speak. His voice becomes noise, his confidence crumbles, and his allies abandon him. Reputation is the soil. Strip it away, and nothing grows. There are many ways to ruin a man's reputation, and they need not always involve direct lies. Sometimes you expose truths he wished to hide. Sometimes you let his own flaws speak louder than any accusation. Other times, you plant small seeds of doubt, whispers, questions, hints, that slowly corrode the trust others place in him. The brilliance of reputation warfare is that once suspicion begins, it rarely dies. People are eager to believe the worst, and when given a reason to doubt, rarely return to full faith. But the art is in subtlety. If you attack too directly, it may appear as vengeance. If you destroy too openly, it may invite sympathy for your enemy. Instead, the goal is to make the ruin of his reputation seem natural, inevitable, the result of his own weakness rather than your hand. When others believe he has undone himself, you not only erase him, you appear untouched, innocent, above the fray. This is the Machiavellian method to win battles unseen, to destroy without appearing to strike. Remember also that when you attack a man's reputation, you are not only punishing him, you are warning everyone else. Allies who once thought of betrayal now see the fate that awaits them. Rivals who considered defiance now tremble at the cost. It is not just about silencing the one who disrespected you. It is about teaching the world that no man can raise his voice against you without risking the loss of everything he holds dear. Fear of ruin spreads faster than fear of pain, for pain is temporary, but loss of reputation is permanent. Disrespect, then, must never be treated as a small matter. Do not duel with words when you can destroy with perception. Do not waste energy silencing a tongue when you can silence the man behind it forever. Strike at what truly sustains him. Ruin his reputation, and you will not only end his challenge, you will erase his very capacity to challenge again. When a man disrespects you, his offense is not an isolated act. It is a message to everyone watching, a question whispered into the minds of the crowd. Can he be challenged? Can he be opposed without consequence? This is why Machiavelli teaches that disrespect is never just about one enemy. It is about all who stand around him, all who witness, all who judge whether you are strong enough to rule. To answer one insult is to protect yourself. To make that insult into a warning is to protect your power for years to come. Men are not guided by reason alone. They are guided by fear and by example. They learn less from what they are told and more from what they see. If one man dares to strike you with disrespect and walks away unharmed, others will be emboldened. They will follow his path, convinced that they too can defy you without punishment. But if that same man is crushed so thoroughly that his ruin is remembered, then his fate becomes a lesson. His downfall becomes your shield, a silent warning to all others. This is the price of disrespect. The art lies in the severity of your response. It must not be half-hearted. It must not be forgettable. The punishment must be decisive, so complete that it lingers in memory. When one is punished lightly, others think I can endure that. But when the punishment is absolute, when it ends careers, reputations, or even lives, the cost becomes too high to risk. Machiavelli reminds us that men are bold when they believe the danger is small, cautious when the price is unbearable. Your role, then, is to make that price unthinkable. Yet this is not a call for reckless cruelty. To punish without purpose is to appear tyrannical, and tyranny breeds rebellion. The power of an example is in its clarity. The crowd must not see your actions as madness, justice, or at the very least as inevitability. They must whisper to themselves, he had no choice. This is what happens when one oversteps. In this way, fear is reinforced not by chaos but by order. The warning becomes stronger because it appears rational, not vengeful. History offers endless proof of this principle. Kings who ignored insults were soon mocked openly. Generals who tolerated small acts of defiance soon found themselves surrounded by mutiny. But those who struck once, precision, and made that strike echo loudly, rarely had to strike again. For one example is often enough to govern the behavior of thousands. A single act of punishment, remembered and repeated in stories, becomes more powerful than 100 minor corrections. Understand also that when you make an example of one man, you shape the future without lifting a hand again. Others restrain themselves, not because they love you, not even because they respect you, because they fear to share his fate. Fear, Machiavelli tells us, is a more reliable guardian of order than love, for love is fragile, but fear endures. By making one man suffer publicly, you create invisible chains on the rest, chains that keep them loyal, silent, obedient. And so, when faced with disrespect, do not see only the offender, see the crowd behind him. See the whispers waiting to spread. See the boldness ready to grow if unchecked. Your response must be more than personal revenge. It must be political theater. One man falls, but in his fall, 1,000 others learn their place. Disrespect is not merely crushed, it is transformed into a warning, a monument of fear that stands long after the dust has settled. Disrespect is never a small act. It is a spark, and if ignored, it becomes a fire that consumes authority, reputation, and power. Machiavelli teaches us that to survive in this world of ambition and rivalry, you cannot meet insults like the common man. You must rise above, calculating every move with precision. Never answer on equal ground, for that lowers you. Never rush, For time sharpens the blade of revenge. In public, strike with decisiveness so that all may fear the example, but in private, weigh whether mercy can serve you more than cruelty. Deny your enemy the satisfaction of reaction, and when you choose to destroy, do not wound only his words, ruin his reputation so completely that no shadow of defiance remains. And finally, remember that every act of disrespect is not just an attack. It is an opportunity. An opportunity to show the world what happens when your power is tested, to make an example so unforgettable that no other dares to follow. This is the darkest way to handle disrespect. Not through anger, not through equal retaliation, through strategy, patience, and ruthless control. For in the end, it is not the insult that matters. It is how you shape it into a weapon that protects your authority for as long as you rule.